welcome back to TBMStv. I'm Carter Mayo.
Coach Gomez.
Okay, so Coach, what has been the most challenging concept for your 8th grade so far?
A lot of people really struggle with, or historically, a lot of people have really struggled with the chemistry aspect. So the stuff that we talk about first during the year, people usually struggle with the most. I think part of that has to do with, because we're talking about atoms and how small that they are, it's hard for people to wrap their head around. So it's not like something that we're talking about now with like force and motion, so that we have a better frame of reference for it now. Okay. So that's usually what people struggle with the most.
Solid. So on a scale of 1 to 10, what is like the amount of homework that the students should be expecting?
I would say probably about a 3, 2.5 to a 3. It's not that we don't do a lot of work, but I try to, in the planning stages of the lessons, try to make sure that we have plenty of time to do it in class. If I have students that consistently have a lot of homework, it's because they're not using the class time wisely.
Okay. So what overall advice would you give the incoming 8th graders? And what do they need to know over the summer?
Incoming advice that I would give is try to learn to be able to self-assess where you are at. So for instance, like if you don't know something, instead of walking up to the teacher and going, man, I have no idea what we're talking about, like try to figure out something specific that we can use to help target the help that you need. Okay, because the more specific you can be in your questions, the easier and the quicker I can get to helping you with your problems. All right.
Hey y'all, I'm here with Curran, and I have some questions for you. What is the most difficult thing about science for this year?
Science, I would say definitely the labs that we do. They're kind of hard to figure out how to do, and that's just my opinion, but not other people's.
What have you had to study for the most this year?
I don't study a lot, but if I did, it would be definitely like exams, like the big exams, because they got a lot of confusing questions on them. It has stuff that you learned from a couple months ago that you don't really remember a lot. So you got to go back in your notes, which is very important to do. You got to take notes because you got to study over those.
What has been your favorite thing to learn about in science?
That's hard. I would say scientific equations. They're kind of confusing, but they're fun when you get them.
What skills did you learn in 7th grade that have helped you a lot this year?
Definitely periodic table stuff.
What advice do you have for the 7th graders going into 8th grade?
Really pay attention to everything that your teacher says and make sure you get it stuck in your memory, study about it, because maybe randomly one day it'll pop up again and you'll know the answer right away.
Hey y'all, I'm here with Paisley, and I have some questions for you. What is the most difficult thing for you this year in science?
Displacement graphs, because there's a lot of numbers.
What have you had to study for the most this year?
Periodic tables, because there's a lot of elements.
What has been your favorite thing to learn about in science?
Speed, velocity, and acceleration.
What skills did you learn in 7th grade that have helped you a lot this year?
Doing the review game.
Yeah. What advice do you have for the 7th graders going into 8th grade?
Pay attention.
What has been the most challenging concept or information for your students to master this year?
The most challenging concept or information for my students to master this year, including you, Curran Apple, actually has been probably just the willingness to write. Anytime it feels like that we're asking students to write, whether it be on a Chromebook or actually handwriting, composing multiple paragraphs, I get lots of groans. I get some students that just absolutely freeze and they complain. So what has helped me is to model the writing, to show them how I would write it. That seems to help them get motivated. But yeah, in 7th grade, you're probably already doing a lot of writing, but what you really need to concentrate on or to focus and practice on is that willingness and that ability to have a prompt, a writing prompt, and to be able to get started on that. I mean, writing something is better than just being paralyzed and writing nothing. And so, just as it's good to get in the habit of reading, at home and here at school, I think you need to be able to practice writing as well.
All right. How much homework do you give, and would you rate that on a scale of 1 to 10? 1 being what's homework, and 10 being every night.
So English is a little different from a lot of other subjects in that there isn't a lot of homework. So I would rate mine about a 2. That doesn't mean we don't have to work, and part of that is your ability to write and read, even if you're not being asked to. So as we move forward into the second half of this school year, there's be more writing. So it'll probably be more writing homework when we get there. But just in general, English class, unless we're doing a project, isn't typically one you're going to have a lot of homework.
All right. What advice do you have for the 7th grade students to best prepare for your class next year?
Read. Do a lot of reading. Find a type of book you can enjoy to read. When you're doing your reading at home, don't lay down in your bed to read unless you're a very seasoned reader. But what typically happens when someone's not a practiced reader, they lay down in bed and get comfortable to read, and then their mind wants to shut off, and they often find themselves asleep with the book on their chest. Has that ever happened to you, Curran?
I don't read.
So you don't even try to read.
I mean, I've tried to, but I do fall asleep.
Yeah. So what happens
Oh,
when you're
mostly.
falling asleep, students out there, 7th grade students, as you're preparing for 8th grade, your mind isn't used to reading. Just like an athlete has to get used to lifting weights, running, getting in shape, so do you as readers have to get in shape. So my advice to 7th graders would be to find some type of book, some type of genre, whether it's fantasy, mysteries, biographies about like your favorite sports teams or your favorite musicians. Find something that interests you and then practice reading and be in reading shape by the time you come into 8th grade.
All right. What is your favorite part about teaching English?
My favorite part about teaching English is that you can pretty much touch on any subject that you want. In history, you're sort of limited to talking about history. In math, you're obviously just dealing with numbers and equations. Same with science, although science has a broader scope. But in English, we can talk about history, we can talk about science, we can even talk about math. I mean, the subjects that are available to talk about and learn about are endless. So I really like that about teaching English.
All right. Thank you for the interview.
You're welcome.
Hello, everybody. Today I'm here with Tristan Scott, and I'm here to interview him about 8th grade English. Okay, so Graper, what is the most difficult thing you've learned in English this year?
It's got to be understanding the tuck short answers because, like, you've got to be unique about your thing, and Coach really pushes us to have a different answer about it, and yeah.
What have you had to study for the most?
Probably the vocab tests because they're really the only tests we take, but they can be pretty difficult sometimes. And there's a bunch of different vocab words we have to memorize, and yeah. But Coach really helps us out with that.
What has been your favorite thing to learn in English?
Honestly, I like reading the Tuck book, but I think like writing the vocabs are super fun because we get to make drawings that that describe the vocab word, and yeah, it's super fun to me.
Graper, what skills in 7th grade in English have helped you the most this year?
Really knowing how to read and write pretty well because a lot of what we're doing here is just writing a bunch and reading a bunch. So, shout out to Miss Teague over there. She taught me how to read and write really well. So I'm pretty good at writing stories now.
Hi, I'm Peyton Young, and I'm with Miss Gomez from Tomby Middle School, and I'm going to ask her some questions about math. So, Miss Gomez, what has been the most challenging thing about math?
It's weird this year. we're struggling with perimeter and area, which we haven't even really covered that yet. But we're just not knowing how to find the perimeter of a figure if I give you the area of the figure. So we're forgetting that we need to take the square root of that number, and then to find the side length, and then multiplying it out to find the perimeter.
What advice do you have for the 7th graders that are going into 8th grade math?
To pay attention and to not forget what they've learned. I've gotten to sit in on 7th grade classes this year, and I know that what they're learning in 7th grade will set them up for success in 8th grade, because I know what I teach in 8th grade, right? So as, for example, today they were learning about angles. And as Miss Curtis was instructing them about angles, I was thinking of all the different ways we use angles in 8th grade. So just because we are going to go into 8th grade next year doesn't mean we need to forget what we learned in 7th grade. Same thing for 8th grade going into 9th grade. I know you didn't ask me about that, but I'm going to share. What you guys are learning in 8th grade this year is going to be used in high school. Some of it will be in your freshman year, like solving equations, proportionality, determining slope and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But then some of it you might not use until you're in geometry, like the transformations that we're using right now. You will revisit that when you take your geometry class. So each year in math, we just build on what we learned the previous year. So it's not something that we should think, oh, I'll just take the test and I'll be done with that for this year. Like, you need to keep that in your brain.
Well, thank you, Ms. Gomez, for your help with figuring out all the 8th grade stuff and helping the 7th graders figure out what's going to happen next year.
Absolutely. I'm always here.
Today, I'm here with Carter Eddy,
Howdy.
and today I'm going to be asking him some questions about math.
Sounds great.
What has been the most difficult thing you've studied this year?
Probably multi-step equations. It's not like difficult, but I always have to study it because I can never remember correctly and always end up making a mistake.
What has been your favorite thing to learn in math?
My favorite thing probably is to convert decimals to fractions or vice versa, because it's easy and it's kind of cool.
What advice do you have for the 7th graders that are going into 8th grade math?
Well, first of all, you should definitely listen to Miss Gomez. Just be respectful, And two, if you want to have good grades, turn in your homework, just like the sign in Miss Gomez's classroom says.
My favorite thing to learn about would definitely be scatter plots and mean absolute deviation. It's really easy once you get the hang of it, but it's all about like the first day when she introduced it to you. That's when you gotta pay attention the most. And
Okay. What skills did you learn in 7th grade in math that have helped you the most this year?
in 8th grade, you do use calculators a lot, so division and multiplying won't be like your main thing you have to worry about in math, but just learning about like fractions and just some basic stuff, just like the basics in 7th grade. That's really all I have to know.
What advice do you have for the 7th graders going into 8th grade math?
It can be a little intimidating at the start because it's called pre-algebra, and people are going to think like, oh, it's like just a bunch of random nonsense they're not going to know. And just don't get intimidated. It's going to get easier. And if you just if you just keep paying attention, if you know it, if you start knowing it, it'll be fun to like finish first out of all your classmates and all that stuff. And yeah.
Hey y'all, welcome back to TBMStv. Today I'm with Miss Mathis and I'm going to be asking her some questions about US history. So, what has been the hardest thing for your students to kind of remember and get a grasp on?
I think that it's hard to get the overall, pointing to my timeline, the overall flow of things, getting off the ground with the co-op colonies, and then telling the difference between the Declaration and the Constitution, and understanding how everything fits together.
Yeah.
That's a struggle a little bit at the beginning of the year.
Okay. And what is the most fun thing to like? What's your favorite thing to teach your students?
Oh, well, I enjoy a lot of it, but it's really fun when people's light bulbs start going off and they make the connections and see how it all fits together like a story.
Yeah.
And I like to do a variety of things in my classes. Everyone likes to dress up for the skits. And then Colonial Christmas was a lot of fun. We got the chance to do that. All of it together, I think, is awesome. Everyone likes using the quill pen too.
Oh yeah. And now, last question: what do you think that seventh graders need to know coming into eighth grade U.S. history?
I think that a good thing to remember at the beginning of the year, maybe some seventh graders can remember this, is that we have to get moving through the material pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And we have to keep rolling. So you've got to keep up and you've got to start those good study habits right off the bat of getting your notes and paying attention and being in class. Kind of the same thing for every class, but we have a lot of material to learn and it goes pretty quickly. So if you just miss one stage, you might miss a piece of the history, part of the puzzle piece that makes everything else make sense. So,
Yeah.
But listen to your social studies teachers before you get here, and you'll have a good foundation.
What's up, Tom Bean? I'm Carter Eddy, and I'm here with Alex Morales today. I'm going to be interviewing him about U.S. history. So, what has been the most challenging things to learn in U.S. history?
I would probably say dates.
Like remembering them?
Yeah, remembering
Yeah.
the dates.
Yeah, I understand that. And what has been the most like fun thing to learn in U.S. history?
Probably like when we do the skits. Like
Oh, yeah, those are fun.
those are really fun to acting.
Yeah. Now, on a scale of 1 through 10, like 1 being what's homework and 10 being I love doing homework, where do you stand on how much homework you get and like you do?
Well, in history we don't really get homework, but I don't like homework in general, so I would say like maybe 4.
Okay. And what knowledge do seventh graders need to know and pay attention to in seventh grade before they come to eighth grade U.S. history?
Probably some of the locations and battles, because those come into play sometimes.
What's up, Tom Bean? Today I'm with Victor Georgiev, and today I'm going to be interviewing him about U.S. history. So, Victor, what has been the most difficult thing to kind of get a grasp on in U.S. history?
I would probably say memorizing some of the dates that we have to memorize because we don't have to memorize a lot. For me, numbers doesn't really stick to my head that well
Yeah,
when it comes to memorizing them.
Okay. Yeah. And now, what has been the most like fun thing to learn?
Probably like so far, probably the Revolutionary War because we need to learn about the battles and stuff,
Yeah.
which was kind of cool.
Now, on a scale of 1 through 10, like 1 being what's homework and 10 being you get homework all the time, every day, like where does the class stand on that based on how much homework you get?
Probably like a 3. I mean, you get it every once in a while, but if you complete your work in class, you'll have like no homework at home.
Okay, that's nice. That's nice. And what knowledge do seventh graders need to know about history to kind of get kind of a good head start, or not even head start, but like a good start to U.S. history?
If you know a lot of the Texas history stuff, if you keep that in your head, it should help you a lot with the U.S. history because it's some of the same stuff and some of the same events.
Okay, very nice. Thank you for your time, sir.
Uh-huh.
What's up, Tom Bean? I'm Carter Eddy. This is Carter Mayo. And today I'm going to be asking you some questions about U.S. history, okay?
Oh, all right.
All right. So, in U.S. history class, what has been the most difficult thing to kind of learn?
Um, I'd say just trying to like remember everything at once, like with all the notes and all that.
Yeah.
Just keeping that down. Well, recently we're learning like who's on all the money, who's
Oh,
like
yeah.
the presidents on the money.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty interesting. Being
Yeah.
able to know all those.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. And On a scale of 1 through 10, like 1 being what's homework and 10 being you get homework every day, 24/7, how much homework do you get in class?
History class, we don't really have any homework. If we don't finish something, then it'll be homework. So I'd say about maybe a 2.
Okay. And what knowledge do 7th graders need to know coming into 8th grade U.S. history?
Just be able to know, like, obviously we know that you're gonna have to work hard and like have a good memory probably. Do your notes and all that. But other than that, it's just like the main gist of history.
Yeah.
Remembering all the years and like the battles and what time it was.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you for your time.
Yeah.